Наилучший способ провести этот вечер, потому что мы дождались появления двух звезд в этой аудитории. Я хочу вам представить прежде всего нашего гостя, а потом одного из наших хозяев, Карло Ратти, звезда мировой величины, крупнейший специалист по биг-дейта и по развитию городов. Человек, которым может гордиться такой университет, как MIT. И Карло Ратти приехал на открытые инновации, но резонно согласился на то, что надо бы пообщаться со студентами и академическим сообществом, потому что тема городского развития, она, вообще говоря, тема такая человеческая вполне, а не только для специалистов по инновационной экономике и инновационному сектору. Мне кажется, что не надо представлять Сергея Александровича Капкова, по крайней мере, здесь, в Москве, пожалуй, самого успешного городского министра культуры, который знает наша страна, и человека, который сейчас возглавил, к нашему удовольствию, Центр исследования экономики, культуры, городского развития и креативных индустрий на нашем экономическом факультете. Собственно говоря, мне кажется, что я выполнил свою функцию декана, открывая это общение, и дальше я попрошу Сергея Александровича Капкова выступать как представителя хозяев и человека, который в 100 раз больше понимает в этой теме, чем, по крайней мере, я, и желаю нам всем удовольствия от того, что здесь будет происходить. Прошу, Сергей Александрович.
Спасибо. Давайте отсюда тогда. Спасибо, Александр Александрович. Я думаю, тогда логичней, чтобы мы прослушали тот доклад, который Карло Ратти к нам только что с самолета привез, а дальше я скажу свое мнение про Москву, российские крупные города, и мы будем рады ответить на любые вопросы и поучаствовать в любой дискуссии. Так что, Карло, вам слово.
All right. All right, well, good evening, everybody. By the way, I had a few questions before starting, and first of all, it's a great pleasure to be back here in Moscow and be here with you tonight. I want to ask you, I prepared actually two presentations. One which is looking more at the city from an architectural point of view, and one which is looking a bit more about big data and how big data is changing our cities. So I wanted first to have a little bit of a sense from you. And you know, this also reflects what we are doing both at the Senseable City Lab, in our research lab at MIT, where we looked more at the big data component, or what we do in our design office, where we look at something that then becomes a building or a project in the city. So I wanted to get a little bit of sense from you about the composition of your backgrounds, to understand what would make most sense tonight. Are you mostly from architecture, planning, or economics? Let's see, people from economics, can you raise your hands? Okay. People from planning? Okay. From architecture and design? All right. Okay. My suggestion there would be I'll focus a little bit more. I think I'll pick the presentation more on data, on the data component, and more on big data in cities. But I'm very happy then in the question answer to talk more about our work we do as designers to really do something that then becomes a building or a piece of city. But as a presentation, I think I'll stick a bit more to the data component. So. Let me take the other presentation. All right. Oops. No. This is fine. I'm just changing presentation, so everything is fine. No worries. All right. So as I said, what I will do, I just swapped the presentation. I prepared the one that was more about design, and then I'll show you one which is a bit more about data and understanding cities with data. Call it big urban data. Can we have the lights slightly down? I think we'll see the images better. But I will start with this just as an analogy. If you look at this picture, that's a picture from Formula One, and something quite interesting happened in Formula One over the past 10 or 20 years. 10 or 20 years ago, if you wanted to win a race, you need a good physical infrastructure. Today, if you want to win a race, you also need a good digital infrastructure. A system made like this, collecting a lot of information from the race, sending it to those computers where it's analyzed, it's processed, and decisions are made in real time. In other terms, for all of us who are from engineering or from computer science, that's like a real-time control system. So a system which is made of two components, a sensing component, collecting information from the city, and an actuating component. How can we use that information to, in this case, to win the race? Now, the amazing thing we believe is that today our cities are starting to behave a little bit like that Formula One racing car. Our cities being covered, layered with many different types of network, of sensors and so on. And because of that, the way we can actually collect information from cities and respond to that information is radically changing. Let me give you just one example out of many. What you see here is the progression of mobile connections on the planet. It might seem surprising today that there was a time when humanity could live without a mobile connection. Back in 1979, there were no mobile phones, commercial mobile phone. The first one is actually a network developed by NTT in Japan. And then it took like 20 years to get to 1 billion, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 billions. Now you might ask yourself, how much more can this grow? Well, according to Ericsson, who never missed a prediction in this space, we're down here somewhere, and then we'll be at 50 billion in 2020. And how could it be? Is it going that each of us is going to have like 17 iPhones in our pockets? Well, not really. We started by connecting people with people, and then we moved in connecting people with data, people to machine to data, and more machines to machines, so things talking to other things. And all of this is creating an incredible amount of data outside in the city that can help us really understand what is going on. Now, if you look at data, the amount of data, that's an estimate that's already a few years old. It's an estimate by Eric Smith. And if basically you take all the data from the beginning of humanity, of civilization, till 2003, well, that's more or less the same amount of data we now produce every 24 to 48 hours. The quality is not the same, but the quantity is exactly the same. There's another definition about big data that's by a friend of mine who's Professor Mike Batty at University College in London, and that's big data is all what you cannot put in an Excel spreadsheet. And this definition is not just a funny definition, but it's actually quite profound. It's because when you got big data, you need new ways to actually put your hands in it, understand what is going on, process it, visualize it. So it requires a lot of effort in order to really understand what is going on. Can I ask you also something else? Because I'm speaking a bit slower than normal, but I want to see how many of you are following in English, how many are following in... So in English, can you raise your hands? Okay. Is it okay? I'll speak a bit slower for the translation. Is the translation okay? It's fine. Okay. All right. So I'll... a bit slower. Slower? Okay. All right. Okay, I'll speak a bit slower. All right. So on the big data, I want to share with you different type of data we can now collect in cities. The first type of data is what we usually call in research as opportunistic data. It's data that's collected for one reason, but we can use it for something else. What you see here, for instance, is the final of the soccer World Cup in Rome, mapped for the first time ever back in 2006 using millions and millions of cell phones, data from cell phone moving in the city. You see people moving, you see the Colosseum, you see the river. The match begins, nobody talks anymore. France scores, Italy scores, half time, people make a call and go to the bathroom. And then second half, the first overtime, the second overtime, the famous headbutt by Zidane, and finally, Italy wins. And then you see everybody goes here to celebrate. And then the following day, again, people go there to celebrate. And by the end of the day, you will see a big peak, a big peak over here, where people move to go into a big party in this place called Circo Massimo, and you see that collected there. So today we can really understand the city in a way we couldn't before using all of this data. We can do it at the scale of the city, but we can look at it at the scale of the planet. That's data that shows you communications between New York and all of the cities on the planet. We presented this project at the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It shows you in real time what is happening around the globe and how New York connects with all the other cities. You see here Asia going to sleep. You see how this changes over space and time. You see the daytime with the light and the nighttime, and how it changes again, based on different local conditions. You can get all this data and analyze it. In this project, for instance, we looked at something that was in the UK very important for the government, which is better understand regions and constituencies. So what we did, we built the biggest ever non-internet social network. So it's a big social network using data from British Telecom. And then using the network, we try to understand how communities behave over space. So what you see here is actually regions and how regions are divided over space. There's a little video that explains it. I don't have control of the volume, so maybe somebody can reduce it a little bit. But every time we got a phone call, we create a link between two places. And then if we aggregate all of this, let me do something. Actually, if somebody could control the volume, because I don't have control anymore, given that it goes to the thing, maybe if we can reduce it a bit so I can talk over the video. So again, every time we make a call, we create a connection between two places. And if we aggregate this for billions and billions of calls across the whole country, then we get something you could call the human network. So basically, I couldn't talk over the video, but basically the idea of how all of this data can help us to better understand how we as humans communicate with each other, and then can tell us a lot about, for instance, how big a city is, a metropolitan area, how it works, how regions and constituencies are structured over space. And can do the same thing, and this is exactly the same thing done in the United States, using all this data that we generate every day by communicating with each other. So as I was saying, today we can actually understand a city like this, something that was impossible just a few years ago. There's actually the city of Lisbon. It's a project done by Pedro Cruz, who was a student in our lab at MIT from Portugal. This visualization was actually also at the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and it shows really how we can understand and capture a city as a living organism that we couldn't do just a few years ago. And again, if you get the data, then you can analyze it to understand different things. So what you see here is the same data in New York. Every dot is a taxi with a pickup or a drop-off. In yellow is a taxi pickup, and in blue is a taxi drop-off. And then you zoom out. Before we looked at just one small portion of the city, and then you zoom out, you see all of Manhattan and all the boroughs. And then you can ask yourself, what if people could actually share mobility? And if you look at this, you see that between 2 points, any 2 points in New York, you got plenty of trips of people going between those 2 points, and so people could share mobility by sharing a ride. So, if that is the idea, today we like to share many things in our lives. We like to share apartments on Airbnb. We like to share many other things. So if that is the idea, what if people could share more mobility in a city such as New York? Again, if you want to answer that question, sometimes when you got so much data, you need to develop new mathematics to analyze it. So that's a paper we did. It's called, is using network analysis in order to answer that problem, which you could phrase mathematically like this. Imagine you want to take everybody to destination exactly when they need to be there, give or take a small delay, call it a little delta on their destination time. Then what is the minimum number of cars that you need in order to satisfy the mobility demand of New York? And while you run the analysis, if any of you is interested, you find the paper online, but what you find is quite extraordinary, that basically in New York you could cut 40% of the fleets, 40% of the cars we have, and still be able to take everybody to destination exactly when they need to be there. And the amazing thing also is that what you see in the curves is that the curves saturate very fast. So even in smaller cities or cities with less density, you can actually very quickly be able to share mobility. And something interesting is that we did the first results came out around 2 years ago. Then the paper was published a few months ago. But the first results came to the attention of Uber, and we since started collaborating with Uber. As you might know, Uber Pool does exactly this. Uber Pool allows two people to share a ride, and in San Francisco and many other cities all around the world, it has become a big success. So how data can help you tell you something about the city, and then also give you ideas about some ways you could improve in the city mobility or other aspects. Another thing I want to share with you is this was about sharing the ride. But if you think about sharing the car, something exciting is going to happen with self-driving. What you see here is actually a self-driving car. So a self-driving car scans the space around itself like the human eye, creating a 3D model, something similar to this. And self-driving cars are a reality. As we are speaking now, there's plenty of fleets actually running in Boston by MIT, in San Francisco, done by Google, and by many other players worldwide. And, if you are a self-driving car, the exciting thing is not the fact that you don't need to keep your hands on the steering wheel. The very exciting thing is actually that the car can give you a lift when you go to work, and then can give a lift to somebody else in your family, or to anybody else in the city. So what you're doing, you're totally blurring the distinction between private transportation and public transportation. Now, if you combine the two things we mentioned before, the fact of sharing the ride with the idea of sharing the car, the combination of the two gives you a city where potentially you can have satisfied all of the mobility demand of the population, but with 20% of the cars we have today. And think about how different Moscow or New York or Singapore or San Francisco would be if you were to remove 8 cars out of 10. I want to share with you a few other things. When everything will be self-driving, also something like this might change. Something like this is what we all know is a traffic light. And traffic lights actually were developed and came to our streets when cars arrived on our streets. But if you think about a system which is intelligent, where you go self-driving cars, you don't need traffic lights anymore. You can imagine a system whereby cars simply mix without stopping and without bumping into each other. A little bit like this. Don't try yet. So if you look at this again, mathematically is an interesting thing. It's an interesting problem. Again, some of the work we're doing now is to model it from a mathematical point of view using a lot of data that we collected in Singapore. And what you see here in this video, you see to the left. Okay. To the left and to the right, you see the same amount of vehicles arriving in a special place in Singapore, in a special intersection in Singapore. But actually, to the left, you see the most intelligent traffic light we have today. And to the right, you see actually a system based on slots, all other things being equal. And look at what happens just every few minutes to the left and to the right in terms of queuing and delays. Anyway, just to share with you some examples. I also want to share with you this example, another type of data. Okay, now it's all gone, but it's okay. Another type of data that we can use is actually data from credit cards. This is data we've been using a lot around the world. Again, tells you a lot about the city and how the city works. This is Spain, spending in Spain, and how it changes again over space and time. In particular, during some very specific week, which is called Semana Santa, just before Easter, and how people behave. So it tells you a lot of things about both the population and the city. Now, the other type of data that's interesting is data that we all generate when we just go online by tweeting or by uploading pictures. At the lab, we were one of the first groups to look at pictures from Flickr and try to see how they tell us something about the city. So as you know, we take a lot of pictures and they go online. And if you analyze them, you can do something fun. In this project, we started a project with Matteo Renzi, who was the president of the province of Florence. Now he's the Italian prime minister, and he wanted to understand more about tourists in the region. And if you look at this, you see where people take pictures. So you see all of Tuscany with Florence. You can zoom onto Florence and all the way zoom onto one building in Florence. Then if you do something slightly more sophisticated, you can look at the time when the picture was taken. And then you see how people move over space. And so here you see Italians and Americans as they move in Tuscany. Now, I got a question for you. You're a very smart public. So where are the Americans? To the left or to the right? Americans to the left, raise your hands. You need to make up your mind. So one or the other. Americans to the left, raise your hands. Okay. Americans to the right? Okay, more or less 50-50. Well, Americans are to the left here, and if if you're coming from the United States, you go to Tuscany maybe once every 10 years or once in a lifetime. Look at how different you go to the main places. You go to Genoa, Pisa, Florence, to the big cities that you haven't seen. But if you're Italian, you've been there many times, you know the places very well, so you go and try to discover little places around. Look at how different it is the way Italians move over space. Well, we've been doing other things. This is something that our students were very interested about, looking at the best way to go partying in Barcelona using data from Flickr. Or you can look at the color of the pictures, and that tells you something about drought. So again, you use the pictures as a way to sense the environment. In this case, a big problem in Spain gets very dry and you got fires. And here, by looking just at the pictures that people take, you get a way to monitor the landscape around ourselves. We call the projects in Spanish Los Ojos del Mundo. In English is the world's eyes. It's almost like borrowing the eyes of all of us to understand what is going on in our cities. There's many other type of data we can collect. As you're familiar, there's a lot of data from Twitter we can use. In the next project, we've been using a lot of Twitter data to really understand. We discovered something quite interesting, that when we tweet, who's tweeting here? Can you raise your hands? Who has a Twitter account? Not too many people, but okay. But basically, when you tweet, and your tweet is almost, think about, for those of you who don't use it, think about the tweet is almost like a shared SMS. You text in a very short way something, and you share it with your friends, and you can have also thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers. Now, the interesting thing is that how we tweet, we leave digital traces that then we can analyze, like in this case. And what we did, we looked at the golf tournament in the US, and we discovered that the length of tweets correlates very, very well with the excitement of the system. So for instance, if you are in a city and you see the average length of tweets, it tells you how much people are caring about something. It was quite interesting, mathematically very beautiful. So here's a little video. When we tweet, we leave traces that then we can use in order to understand our behavior. And so we looked at the 2012 golf tournament, 40 million tweets we analyzed. And what you see here in the graph, you see every dot is a tweet. The length of the tweet is on the vertical axis. So you got short tweets at the bottom and long tweets at the top. And you got the average with a yellow line. And you see every time there is an intensification, people are doing a match, and a lot of people tweet, then the length also changes. And when you go to look at that, again, if you're interested, you can look at the scientific paper that was published about this. It's very beautiful mathematically how this responds. It's like logarithmic response, very similar to the response that our body has to light and to sound. We often respond in a logarithmic way to stimuli, and this is not different. So, and you see here, basically at the end, when everybody gets very excited with the final, also the length condenses and becomes much shorter. So anyway, how we can use all these data to really understand more about our cities, but also more about society and all of us. The final type of data I want to share with you very briefly is data we can actually sense because we use sensors in the space around ourselves. Now, what I want to do, because now the videos are a bit boring with our music, I'm just going to play it here on this computer, and hopefully you will hear a little bit of it. Just 1 second, I'll just change the preferences here. Okay, now we should be okay. So in this project, for instance, what we did was look at a computer such as this one. If you look at this computer today, you know everything about it. Every chip in that machine, you know where it was produced, how it moved on the planet, how it became this object. You know everything because the global supply chain is very well known and understood. But actually, when you throw something away, when you stop using it, you know very little about it. Sometimes this is what happens. Sometimes a lot of electronics from the United States is shipped illegally to Africa, from Europe to Asia. From Europe to Africa, or from the United States to Asia. So we said, what if we could develop a little chip that we put on trash, and we start following trash? It's a little bit like when you go to a hospital, they put a tracer in your blood, and they follow it in your body to see what goes to the right place or to the wrong place. How could you do that at the scale of an entire city? So we really couldn't find anything we had to off the shelf, so we had to design the little chip that you see there. And we did a first deployment. That was our first deployment in Seattle. 500 volunteers came, 3,000 pieces of trash. We put a little tag on all of them. And after tagging all of them, we started following them. So you can see 3,000 pieces of trash, the day of deployment. After a couple of days, you see some of the main landfills next to Seattle. But an actually big surprise, how far things started to travel. Sometimes in crazy ways. Look at the trace that went to Chicago and then back to California. And still moving after 1 month or 2 months. Farewell Symphony. So what can you do with this? The first thing, if you are an engineer or an architect, you can use all the data and try to design a better system. So how can you engineer a better removal chain so that we save energy? If you look at the traces, sometimes we put more energy in waste than what we will ever be able to recover. The second thing that's very important is that big data, if you share it with people, it can start very interesting dynamics of behavioral change. It means, big data means that we know much more about the environment, we know much more about the consequences of what we do. And because of this, then perhaps we can behave in a different way. Something interesting, at the end of the project, we were sharing the data with the participants. Somebody came to us and said, you know, I used to drink water in plastic bottles every day and then throw the bottles away and, you know, forget about them. But now, after the project, all those plastic bottles will go to a landfill just a few miles from home. They will stay there forever. So because of this, I stopped drinking water in plastic bottles. The third thing we discovered happened more recently. And it happened when a burglar came to our lab at MIT. And the poor guy stole a lot of things, including tags and computers, that tell you where they go. And this is what happened. All right, I'll stop here. Thank you. Yeah. I kept it, you know, and I thought I kept it a bit short, and I wanted to share with you just some projects on data in the city. As I said, you know, there's many other projects, and I got more slides I can share with you, a lot of the design work we do. But all of this is the interface between digital and physical, and how the city, through data, becomes something we can really know much better, and we can use this information then to do architecture and to transform it. But I thought it would be nice to really now have a conversation all together and with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Спасибо, Карло. Мне кажется, что все, что касается понятия Big Data, это все то, что мы называем работа для людей. Потому что дата – это аналитика, это статистика тех людей, тех жителей, которые живут в городе и которые ежедневно являются тем самым городом, той атмосферой города, той страстью, тем нервом города, а не станции метро, не красивая или некрасивая архитектура, не спальные или центральные районы. Мне хотелось бы немного продолжить то, что рассказывал Карло, потому что вся аналитика, мне кажется, Big Data – это аналитика для того, чтобы изменить город, изменить жизнь людей и изменить атмосферу внутри города. понять тех людей, которые в нем живут, понять их ожидания, которые они, может быть, сами еще плохо сформулировали, и попробовать ответить на те вопросы, которые, может быть, жители сегодня еще не задают, но через 2 года будут задавать местным властям. Для начала я хотел бы рассказать, чем будет заниматься Центр экономики, культуры, городского развития при экономическом факультете МГУ. Как вы понимаете, наш центр будет заниматься анализом проделанной работы в крупных городах, таких как Москва, Санкт-Петербург и вообще в региональных столицах. Мы также будем изучать всю статистику, связанную с развитием общественных пространств, творческих, социальных и креативных индустрий. Будем, надеюсь, консультировать крупные местные власти, крупные регионы, крупные города, брав за пример то, что нам удалось за 4 года сделать в Москве. Если брать ту программу общественных пространств, которую мы реализовывали в Москве, мы, наверное, больше по наитию, но жили в той логике, которой рассказывал нам сейчас Карло. То есть мы жили в той логике, что важно понять, для кого ты начинаешь работать. Никакое действие, никакая городская программа не может удовлетворить всех жителей города. Тебе максимально важно выделить тот сегмент горожан, для кого твоя программа работает. Везде, во всех наших программах мы опирались, может быть, достаточно, в чем-то даже цинично, на молодых людей от 18 до 45 лет, называя их молодыми городскими профессионалами, воспринимая их как некое лицо Москвы, воспринимая их как людей, которые, мы надеемся, платят налоги, создают смыслы города, работают в этом городе, имеют возможность сравнивать свой город с другими городами. И некоторые из них даже имеют возможность поменять место жительства, если им некомфортно, и уехать из этого города. Поэтому наша задача была основная, чтобы людям, которые формируют основную актуальную повестку города, в этом городе было комфортно жить. Мне кажется, что наша программа по благоустройству пешеходных зон, парков, набережных и других общественных пространств – это как раз та программа, которая была востребована, и это видно по всем социологическим исследованиям, что она везде стоит первая, как высоко, и лучше всех оценивается москвичами, потому что у жителей города, я думаю, что, может быть, с советских времен, а может быть, просто есть стереотип о том, что развязки, станции метро город и так должен строить. А то, что ты, когда благоустраиваешь город, убираешь его, чистишь фасады, создаешь политику первых этажей, то это уже город работает для тебя лично как для гражданина и жителя этого города. Как мы ощущали, правильно мы делаем или нет, мы просто начали совершенно просто, из тех возможностей, которые у нас были, у нас, наверное, их было меньше, чем у Карла или у мэра Флоренции, мы просто стали мониторить социальные сети. Мы заказывали большие исследования, и вышло так, что тот же символ городских изменений парк Горького вошел в так называемые места силы и вошел в 20-ку место, где люди чекинятся в Фейсбуке, и вошел в 5 мест Инстаграма, где люди фотографируют, когда делают либо селфи, либо фотографию, где они пишут, что это парк Горького. Это произошло, конечно, не только от нашей активной работы, это произошло о том, что конкуренция в общественных пространствах города Москвы совершенно минимальна, если сравнивать с другими мировыми городами. И все, что не сделаешь, худо-бедно хорошо. Все москвичами воспринимается с большой любовью и с большим удивлением, с учетом того, что у нас очень короткое лето. И если брать статистику последнего лета, тот же парк Горького посетило около 18 миллионов человек. Это, конечно, абсолютный рекорд, потому что у нас любой парк или любая территория, отличающаяся от городской территории в лучшую сторону, уже является таким бесплатным городским аттракционом. Тоже не хотелось бы иметь долгую лекцию и в такой поздний вечер вас мучить своими умными мыслями. Я надеюсь, что мы чаще будем встречаться, потому что я все-таки являюсь резидентом экономического факультета. Но еще раз хочется повториться, что город – это не те квадратные метры, которые в нем строятся. Город – это те люди, которые в нем живут. И чем больше будет грамотных, образованных, оптимистичных, здоровых людей, тем наш город будет выглядеть по-другому. Потому что у тех людей, я надеюсь, которые учатся и находятся в этой аудитории, со временем появится еще больше требований к городу, их будет больше, чем парки и общественные пространства, и на эти требования вы сами будете отвечать и сами будете менять город. Спасибо. Коллеги, наверное, какие-то вопросы будут, Карло? Тогда давайте, не стесняйтесь, задавайте.
Yes.
Из каких источников вы получаете данные для анализа? Это государственные какие-то данные или это бизнес?
Thanks for the question. It's a very good question. When I was listening about the project in Gorky Park, which I think has been one of the, I've seen it just as a visitor, but it's been one of the very interesting urban projects in the city. Then it becomes interesting and important to understand, for instance, how people move in the park. It's something we are starting to do in New York City with Central Park, and the data you can get in different ways. In some cases, I saw at the end, you might want to deploy sensors to see what is happening, like we did with Trash Track, or like you can do also in a park. Today it's quite easy to look at signals emitted by phones and so on, in order to understand trajectories of people in the public space. So in some cases you might want to do a partnership with an operator. Think about operators that run a telecommunication networks, operator that runs Wi-Fi nodes, and you can ask them if you could use their data in order to analyze a piece of the city. And finally, in other cases, as we showed, you might just get data that's available to everybody. Think about the data from Twitter that you can just get through an API, and then can tell you a lot about how the city is being used, as we did with Twitter and Flickr data. So I don't think there's a general answer, but based on the problem you're trying to address, then that can tell you about how you can get the data, the best data, for solving it. Yes.
На вашем веб-сайте я нашел статью про...
Wait. Okay, need to put this on. Go ahead.
На вашем веб-сайте я нашел статью, посвященную павильону на выставке World Expo, названном Future Food District. Насколько я понимаю, вы принимали участие в разработке этого павильона. И у меня возник вопрос. В описании этого павильона говорилось о том, что потенциально рынок продуктов будущего может иметь те же преимущества, как и тот рынок, который был в прошлом, в том смысле, что он будет позволять не только односторонне продавать потребителям продукты, но еще и собирать с них определенную обратную связь. И в этом плане он будет во многом похож на ситуацию в прошлом, когда продавец и покупатель встречались лицом к лицу. Не могли бы вы немного более подробно рассказать про ваши идеи, про преимущества, которые этот формат может давать?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for asking. As I said, we also do a lot of projects that then try to change and transform the city. Projects, related to architecture and urban planning. But because I saw that the architects were a bit the minority tonight, I focus a bit more on the data component. So thanks for asking. The project, we did 2 pavilions at the World Expo. We've been working with Expo and Olympics quite a lot to do projects, because usually you can push the boundaries more. If you do something temporary for an Expo, if you do a project for the Olympics, you can actually, as an architect, you can experiment a bit more, because you're not doing a piece of city with, an expectancy of working for 50 or 100 years, but actually you can do something that's temporary, and then you can push the boundary. In the case of the Expo, what you're referring to is in Milan until Friday. This Friday, it was at the World Expo in Milan. The theme of the Expo is feeding the planet. Is about food and how we eat and so on. And it started in the 1st of May this year, and it's going to close actually next Friday. This Friday, coming Friday. And what we did, we were given a site. One of the 2 pavilions was a site where they told us that we had to do a real supermarket, but try to look at the supermarket, how it might change. And we look at 2 things. One aspect is, again, the aspect of interaction with products. So what we develop is a very simple way that you can actually interact with the things around yourself. And so that basically products can tell you a lot about where they're coming from, about all those things that today we have online on the internet, but we don't find when we go and buy and shop something and buy something in a supermarket. So in a certain sense, it's about how we can use information to enrich the shopping experience. And that is done, if you look at the pictures online, that is done in a very immediate way by just simply you point at something. Products are on tables, like in an old market, in a very kind of social way. We think that traditional supermarkets are a bit alienating, because people don't look at each other, they give the back to each other, you just look at products. But if you use tables, it becomes much more sociable and social. And then what you can do is then, as you're approaching products, they will tell you a lot about themselves. One of the inspirations for us was this sentence by Calvino, the Italian writer. He once wrote about one of his characters called Mr. Palomar. And Mr. Palomar goes to a cheese shop in Paris, and he thinks like he's at the Louvre, because every product tells him a story of a different product from a different place and so on. So there was one component of it. The other component is exactly what you said. When you know everything about products and producers, you can think about a supermarket like a free trading area where just people come together and exchange things. You can think about something like an Airbnb of food. Why do we have Airbnb today and not 5 years ago or 10 years ago? 10 years ago, because today we got real-time information and we can trust the people go on an Airbnb and we can trust the places. If you do the same with the food, then you can again start new dynamics of how people can exchange or sell to each other things in a way that has trust behind. So those are the 2 things we try to explore in Milan, and it has been a great experience. We had millions of people go through the supermarket, leaving a lot of positive comments also, on their experience, and some of this is now going to go into real projects. So the expo was like an experiment, collective experiment, where through the feedback of people as well, we can now bring into the real world. Yes.
Спасибо большое за очень интересную презентацию. Все, что вы показали, оно как бы показывает возможности Big Data, оно впечатляет. А вот с точки зрения каких-то возможностей, которые могут быть применены для больших городов, типа Москвы, вот какие бы рекомендации вы могли дать на основе этого анализа?
Well, there's many consequences that you can get out of some of the analytics, but I'll tell you just one as an example. And it is actually something we're doing now in Singapore, and it is related to the fact that if we're going to share mobility more, if you're going to use more and more ride sharing and car sharing, then it means also that we'll need much less parking space. A car in the United States today is used 5% of the time. The remaining 95% of the time, the car is just using valuable space in the city because it's parked somewhere. And so if tomorrow we'll have less need of parking spaces, then it becomes interesting to start thinking about how can we build already, parking spaces that could be transformed tomorrow into places for shopping, into residences, into offices. So, and to do that, for instance, one of the things you don't want to do is do, those tilted parking spaces you find in the United States from the past, because those, you can't do anything else but to put cars. You want to have a certain distance between one floor and the other one so that you can retrofit it with other functions. And one of the things we are now, with our design office, we are now working on a development in Singapore where actually the parking becomes really something that can be transformed and adapted over time. So that's just one example of how, looking at this, better understanding the city, better understanding some of these dynamics can help you to plan or design the city in different ways. In this case, just for instance, for something that uses so much space, which is such as parking. Maybe another comment about still about the previous question that also answers yours. So it's a combination of the two. Is when you look at this, and when we looked at all these millions of people who came through our pavilion at the World Expo, then what you realize is that if you can start these new dynamics, you probably don't need the big supermarket or shopping mall anymore. You can think about the city tomorrow where actually, again, you go back to much more interesting and small-scale shopping conditions without having to do the huge shopping malls and the big box. And that again becomes a very interesting thing for planning the city of tomorrow.
Спасибо вам большое за выступление. Я с удовольствием посмотрел это представление больших данных, которое было сделано. Я являюсь научным сотрудником Московского университета и участвовал в ряде проектов по использованию больших данных. В частности, последний проект, это с корпорацией НЭК, делали концепцию «Безопасный город». То есть просто использование больших данных, наверное, не очень интересно для города именно. В данный исторический момент мы получили заказ от города Воронежа на разработку новых продуктов, связанных с транспортным обеспечением. Есть ли в вашей лаборатории какие-либо наработки по созданию то, что я называю нематериальные маркетинговые активы, которые должен генерировать город? На мой взгляд, это главное в использовании больших данных, потому что то, что мы посмотрели большие данные, да, интересная картинка, лет 10 назад мы смотрели бы на нее с открытыми глазами. Сейчас она просто, хороший инструмент, который должен иметь четкую цель, как ее использовать. Есть ли у вас такие наработки именно с точки зрения города как корпорации? Что сделать в точке зрения создания нематериальных маркетинговых активов? То есть как создать те услуги, которые будут востребованы жителями города, которые они будут получать через год, через 2, через 3? Есть ли у вас такие наработки? Спасибо большое.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your question. If I understand it correctly, it's about how do you plan rules for using big data, how you can use it in the city, and again, it depends on what you're looking at. In a certain sense, one of the first planner of the modern era was writing over 100 years ago, a French guy called Élisée Reclus. So he was saying that in order to plan a city, you need to start by surveying the city. This seems very trivial, but of course, unless you have a survey, unless you know exactly what is going on, it's very difficult to plan and to make, to decide what the city could evolve, how the city could evolve, how it could be. Now, today is not different. There's no difference. So just the big thing is that today, that surveying means that we get an incredible amount of data about the space we live in. And that's really big data. And how do you use it? Well, you can use it in many different ways. Again, you could use it in the longer term for planning. And there, I think we are starting to get some use cases which are quite compelling. Think about if you need to plan a new line of the subway, then you can do it today with a way that you couldn't just a few years ago, because everybody in the city, how they're moving, and then it allows you to really better understand how you could plan the new line. Or the other thing you could do what Mayor Bloomberg in New York was very successful in doing, which is what you can call transport-oriented development, so building space and buildings next to the transportation networks. Well, today you can do it in a much more sophisticated way by actually looking at all the movements of everybody in the city and understanding from there where you're going to put new volumes in the city with a master plan. So these are just some examples of the longer term. And then, of course, you got the total other end of the spectrum. You got the very short term. And I think each of us probably today moves in a different way than just a few years ago by looking in real time, where traffic congestion is and changing directions accordingly. When I landed today at the airport, then the taxi driver had to take me to the hotel, but it was a big traffic jam, and so we saw it in real time just on Google, and then we took another route in order to come here first and go to the hotel later. So the idea that is really real-time response. So I think you want to see anything from the very short-term response to the big data, to the very long-term response, which is how you can use it to better plan a city. In terms of normative, the way it was translated, your question was about the norms that the city might develop. I think they mostly apply to this aspect, to the long term, and how we can use big data, especially open data, in order to better understand how we live today and how we would like our city to be tomorrow.
Здравствуйте, Карло. Сегодня, в сегодняшней презентации, вы показали нам очень много возможностей использования больших данных в городе. То есть вы имеете большое представление о том, что сейчас возможно делать в городе, используя большие данные, а что невозможно. У меня к вам такой вопрос. Есть ли у вас идея какого-то проекта, который при сегодняшнем развитии технологий невозможен, но, может быть, будет возможен в ближайшие 30-50 лет? То есть какой-нибудь проект, который вы хотели бы реализовать в ближайшие годы? То есть о чем вы мечтаете сейчас? Спасибо.
Thank you. Well, we dream of many things, but I'll tell you, for instance, one project that is just starting to become possible. One project we're working on at the moment. I didn't show it, but it is a project that looks at something interesting. When you look at our bodies, in our bodies, for every cell in our body, there are around 10 viruses and bacteria living with us, with all of us. And that is what is called the human microbiome. And the human microbiome has been studied and researched just in recent years with new techniques based on complete genomics. And we now know the human microbiome is a very important component of health, of how healthy we are. Well, one of the things is that we can think about the future where the human microbiome will be monitored by all of us in real time. Every morning when we go to the bathroom, we can have a scan of the microbiome, but we're not there yet. So at the moment, things are still quite complex. So one project we're doing now, and I don't have the results yet, but it's a project where we look at sewage in the city, because sewage actually it's almost like an aggregator of the microbiome of all of us, and we go and analyze it in order to better understand many dimensions of health in the city. And one of the things we are finding, for instance, we're able to tell an epidemics such as influenza even before it happens by finding the influenza virus in the sewage. And this project also became a project, it just started now, also is becoming a project in robotics, because we realize it's not that great fun to go in the sewage to collect the samples. So now we have little robots that go and do it for us, but they allow us to understand this invisible world in the city. So that's something quite interesting. I'll tell you something else I think will be very exciting in the next few decades or few years, is that, if you look at our health, it comes at the intersection of basically 4 vectors. One is our DNA, how we are built. The second one is about the environment we live in and how we behave. And then the third one is about the microbiome and basically all of these kind of viruses and bacteria living with us. And I combine basically the environment and the way we live in are 2 of them. So these are the 4 vectors that define health. Now today, for the first time, we can really measure all of them in a way that was impossible before. And if we're able to measure them very precisely, I think we'll be able to crack many of those equations which are still unsolved about human health. Think about how many diseases we still don't know where they're coming from. A lot of things that even medicine says, whatever, that cannot give an explanation or a cure. I think we'll be able to be much more precise with that, because we will know better our behavior in the environment, measuring the environment itself, pollution and so on, measuring our DNA, and measuring all of these viruses and bacteria living with us. So I think as a direction, I think that idea of quantifying all those 4 vectors, starting from the so-called quantified self, which tells us how we behave, how many steps we do every day, and so on, that is going to be quite exciting.
Hi, thank you once again for the presentation. As there is a raising concern of the privacy, I had a question as also a lot of data is used for non-public, for private, for corporate purposes like advertising, online promotion and so on. There is a rising trend on switching off the GPS navigator or switching off cookies and something else. So will it be a problem for the big data, or as the technology goes further, we'll find new ways of obtaining this information? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question, and it's a very important question. I think it's beyond the city. The city is about, I showed you the impact of big data on the city, but if you look beyond the city, then what you are seeing today is that, everything we do in most activities leaves a digital trace. It's about using Facebook, it's about, tweeting, it's about using our phone. This phone is, today we touch something like this over 200 times every day. And every time we touch this, usually we leave a digital trace, including our position. So all of this is an incredible amount of data. It's not about the city, but it's about really how we are kind of digitizing our life. We are taking our physical world and making a digital copy of it. Now, that is creating that has very profound consequences. And one of the consequences is really that we're creating a system where it's going to be very difficult to forget. One of the consequences is about, how can we ensure that there's symmetry in this world, that not somebody, maybe some companies or some states have a control, have access to a lot of information. Access to a lot of information and other states don't. So I think those are very important questions. They go much beyond cities or big data in cities, but they're really profound about the way we live today. And I think we should all have a discussion about these questions. There are questions about democracy. There are many options there. One option also that people are discussing is, should we make everything visible? When all of us a few thousand years ago, just here, we were hunter and gatherers, at the time supposedly, so anthropologists tell us, then privacy didn't exist. We were sharing everything in the group. We could think about a society which is totally transparent. At the same time, because also one of the reasons not to share information is discrimination, but usually when a society becomes more open, discrimination also goes down. Think about in a society that discriminates against gay people, then you wouldn't want to communicate that. But then when that is made transparent, at the same time you probably create awareness and tolerance that you didn't have before. So the two things can go hand in hand. You could imagine a society where everything is known about everybody else. That's one extreme. You can also think about a society where we generate data and we put data on the top of data, so we can track data and see when it goes out of control, where it goes. So you can think about this kind of two different extremes. I'm not telling you there's one direction that's a better one, but I'm telling you that that's a very important question we should all be part of. And at MIT, we try to contribute to this. Twice we organized a big forum called Engaging Data, how we can engage with information. And we had the Obama administration, we had privacy advocates. Last time we had Noam Chomsky, colleague and activist at MIT. We had Snowden's lawyers. We had many other people in order to discuss these issues because they're very big issues. I'm not telling you what the solution is, but I'm telling you that the way our society will be tomorrow depends on the choices we make today.
Smart city is being built in a different way. There are different approaches to it, and there are also different projects that you've shown. Do you already have or developing an approach to build a holistic smart city, and what kind of steps might be undertaken? What kind of ideas might be to develop a smart city, kind of a roadmap of building this city? Because now it seems like there are different, a lot of disparities and different projects, but there is no holistic view of developing and designing.
Well, in general, you're right. When people talk about smart cities, often you got many different ideas, and you can talk about smart city. That's why I don't like the term. I didn't mention it. I try not to mention it much, because smart city then becomes such a vague label that then doesn't mean anything anymore. But smart city, behind smart city, there's something quite profound. And the thing is actually the convergence of digital space and physical space. It's about digital and physical coming together, as we saw on one of the first slides. It's about bits and atoms combining, and that actually allows you plenty of applications. Uber or Airbnb are just some examples that are part of smart cities. For me, are like many other things, like Nest, the thermostat, the intelligent thermostat allows you to reduce your energy consumption in the house. So all of these are just examples of this convergence. But because this convergence is just what Mark Weiser, who was a great computer scientist writing at the end of the past century, he was one of the key people at Xerox PARC in Palo Alto in California, and he defined this as ubiquitous computing. He used to say that basically the first year of computing was the mainframe, the big computers, the one that you think about when you think about the Apollo mission, those kind of huge machine with punch cards and so on. Then the second one is about personal computing, how computing gets close to you with an iPad, a personal computer, a laptop, and so on. But then he was saying, the next evolution is basically ubiquitous computing, when computing is everywhere. And then when it's everywhere, you really can use it for any possible thing. So smart cities is anything from, getting a taxi to running the city better, to having intelligent lights in the city. Is also about you being able to monitor sewage in a different way, to measure the biome. All of this would not be possible without this convergence of digital and physical. So the reason is I don't think there is a way to say this is a smart city, do A, B, C, because it really touches on almost every possible dimension of what a city is.
Коллеги, нет, если больше есть? Тогда я предлагаю 3 вопроса еще под окончание, и мы рады будем заканчивать.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the presentation. It was really impressive. And what impressed me the most is this picture of self-driving cars at the intersection. And I look at this picture with a great anticipation. I want to see it in the reality in Moscow. But I have a feeling that I could wait forever, like till the end of time, 1,000,000 years, because I know that the area of transport and the public transport is strictly regulated, and the policy is really outdated. So could big data help us here to align the regulations and city policies with our pictures of the desired future? And you always mention Uber and Airbnb, but they suffer a lot from the groups of people with different interests. For example, when the politicians or authorities are interested in saving people's jobs, like bus drivers or taxi drivers. So how can we eliminate this contradiction? And is there a simple and smart solution? Can you see this? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And by the way, when you were talking, I was just checking online about if Uber was here. I hadn't taken Uber before, so I think the reason it's operational. But there's just one example. You can really look at many other things. I sometimes say we get a lot of mayors coming to us and say, how do I make my city smarter? And we usually tell them, the first thing, the best thing you can do is actually don't do, or let other people do. In a certain sense, is actually release some of the regulations you're talking about to allow this level of experimentation. And actually, next week I'm in New York with a project that is happening there that is run by the former head of the city, the CEO of the city, that really looks at how we can do this, how we can get parts of a city, and we can experiment a bit more. We can actually release some of the regulations we have and actually have the city more as a living lab, as a place for experimentation. So that is certainly very important. At the same time, I think those things, some of the things we've seen, usually they have 2 interesting components. Let's look in more detail at something like Airbnb. And these 2 components are usually common to many of the things we're talking about tonight. Airbnb is just one example, but I could use another label, it would be the same thing. Well, if you had to build a hotel with so many rooms like Airbnb. Just in Paris, there's tens of thousands of rooms across the city. If you had to build a hotel with that across the world, it requires an incredible amount of investment, of capital, of energy to build the hotels, of energy to heat them and air condition them. So it will be an incredible amount of waste of energy that actually, in the case of Airbnb, you don't put. With almost zero energy, you just allow to release spare capacity and optimize the system. So the first thing is that many of these things just have a very strong optimization component. And when you think about cars, because cars are so inefficient, as I was saying, we use them 5% of the time, 95% of the time they're just parked somewhere. Then, then changing that 5% can make a huge difference to the system in terms of efficiency. There's a lot of things that you can do with inventing new ways that are better than the existing one, because the existing one is so poor. And the same goes with other things. So the first thing is that you can actually get a lot of value by using things better. And that applies to the whole spectrum. The other thing that's usually interesting is that in most of these cases, you also use things better by sharing with other people somehow. And so you also have a more social component. So you can actually meet other people, you can actually do things together with other people, so you bring a more social component. So these two components, the social component and the component about how you can get a lot of money back or energy back, or save a lot of energy or money and so on, then those are very powerful forces. And so even if regulation at the beginning doesn't do it, then ultimately I think this will happen because there's so much to gain. And we've seen in the past regulation can resist for a little bit, then other countries will do it. You will see it done somewhere else. Even the powerful lobbies at one point will succumb, and then the things will happen. The important thing as a mayor, however, is also to manage the transition. So if you are a taxi driver and you've driven all of your life in Moscow and you paid a lot for your license, for your plate, for your medallion, then you want to manage the transition. So I think I'm optimistic in the long term because I think you see two important things, sociability and efficiency, that will make these things a reality. But in some cases, yes, we might need to have a way to monitor and to manage the transition in order to understand how we go there without also having societal problems that are very real, if you think about the case of taxi drivers, for instance. Yeah.
Спасибо за действительно интересную презентацию. Хотелось бы узнать, какую цель имел и на какой результат был рассчитан проект с чипированием мусора. И дали ли обобщение полученных данных толчок для развития программ разумного распределения ресурсов?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, in a certain sense, as I said, it's a little bit like when you go to hospital, they put a tracer in your blood, and they follow you through your body. You discover interesting things. You discover what works, what doesn't work, what could be done better. So our idea was to do the same thing at the scale of the city. And as I was saying, one thing you learn is that actually you could optimize a lot of those chains. Today, usually everybody has a small piece of that, call it removal chain. Not the supply chain, but what happens to things when you throw them away, so a little bit. And but nobody had actually traced the whole thing from the beginning till the end. And then if you do that, then it allows you to really, as an architect, as an engineer, to think about better ways to improve the efficiency of the system. So that's one thing that if you do it also in a more generalized way, can really help you to redesign, in this case, something that uses a lot of energy, even if you don't see it, which is the system to manage waste. And the second thing, as I was saying, that I think is very important, is that big data sometimes is important just because it's something that you can share and tells us a lot about the consequence of what we do. And that's the example I made before, that basically if you know better about waste and what happens to it, then we might change our behavior. And behavioral change is going to be very, very important. Behavioral change means starts from the awareness of the environment, and then means that basically we respond to that. And that response can have incredible change on the system when you multiply it for billions of people in the system.
Добрый вечер, спасибо большое за презентацию. У меня возник такой вопрос. Когда мы опираемся на социальные сети, Инстаграм, Фейсбук, Твиттер, мы изучаем определенные сообщества, мы изучаем определенную демографическую группу. Допустим, какие существуют способы для измерения поведения, стиля жизни, например, пожилых, по которые не пользуются социальными сетями, которые максимум звонят по телефону 1-2 раза в сутки. Как мы можем использовать Big Data для изучения этой категории?
Thanks for the question. Actually, it's a very interesting point. And all the time, when you do something with big data, you need to ask yourself the question. So, how representative is of the population, or do you have any biases in the place? Now, there's not a general answer. Of course, if you look at Instagram, you probably look at certain demographics. But if you look, the thing I can tell you is that when we started looking at data from cell phone, we were one of the first teams in terms of research to look at cell phone data. Around 10 years ago, one of the first project we did was the one where you saw with Rome and the World Cup. And when we started doing that at the time, yes, there was an issue of penetration of cell phone and what was the percentage of the population that had cell phones. But then you fast forward just 10 years, and on the planet, we got almost more cell phone than people. You got many parts of the planet, actually, where you got people who don't have running water, but they will have a cell phone or a smartphone. So I think, what I'm saying here is that you always need to ask yourself that question. The analysis I'm doing, has it any biases? If so, can I correct the biases, the different way to take a correction into account? And, in looking at that, the other thing, however, I'm saying is that it's still interesting to look at this, because what we've seen is that technology is spreading so fast that, I think today even grandmas are on Facebook and, will use it. So I think technology has been spreading so fast that you capture more and more the population. So very important question, but in many cases also at one point you capture virtually everybody, and then at that point, the question has a simple solution.
Коллеги, как договаривались, это был третий финальный вопрос. Я хотел бы от вашего лица поблагодарить Карло.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody. It was a great pleasure. Sorry, I just arrived from the airport and came here, but it's great to be back in your wonderful city. I've been here quite a few times, and I always enjoyed. Thanks a lot.